Someone asked me what my thoughts were on karate teachers promoting children to black belt was. What do I think about children being black belts? Uh, that's an interesting question. This was the topic of discussion probably 2 decades ago, uh, around the town, if you will. And it's interesting. I believe that the child has to be emotionally mature. I have a certain degree of responsibility or discipline outside of just physically learning something in the way of martial arts techniques. Anyone can copy or mimic movements and look very convincing. Anyone can apply certain techniques and memorize certain uh, information historically about martial arts and so forth, as far as learning terminology and things of this sort. Anyone can fake the funk, even children. But when the real pressure of life comes, where will you find that individual? Note the word individual. So we cannot paint this picture with such a broad stroke of a paintbrush and say, metaphorically speaking, we can't say that all children are the same. There are always and will always be an exception to the rule. But in general, it has always been my view and my feeling that children should not be promoted to black belt, and not until they an emotional status where they can handle life on a certain degree, or a certain level, I should say. So it's like, would you send a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and I've seen black belts at those ages, trust and believe, and I'm sure if you've been around the tracks for a while as a martial arts instructor, you've seen it too. Maybe not even you, but you've seen it worldwide, stage, in competitions and so forth. You know, everybody wants to get the little kids in their home in martial arts because some of the older individuals are in martial arts. You know, you want it to be a family thing, and as such, I understand it can still be a family thing, but everybody doesn't have to be a black belt all the way down to a toddler. So, would you send a child that's 8 years old to combat, to war? No. Would you send a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old to war? No. But they do send children, if you will, or teenagers, 18 years old, and there has been instances where 17-year-olds have gone to war at the age of 17 in this country. And depending on what war you're talking about, there are some who faked their ages and went in at 17 many years ago. So if you won't be so apt to send a 18-year-old to war, and you'd rather that person, that individual, be 21 and above, if you have to think about it at 18, then why would you promote a child 8 years old and 10 years old to black belt? For what reason? I know I'm sort of jumping around here, but no, I don't believe that a child, generally speaking, under the age of, let's say, 17 or 18, should be a black belt under the age of 17. And again, notwithstanding those individuals that do display a certain amount of discipline and a certain amount of character, a certain amount of maturity. If you're not mature, there's some older people that's not mature, by the way, but if you're not mature as a child, you should never ever promote your child or a student, teachers and parents, to black belt. Not at all. Give them some time to grow. Give them some time to be a child and let them grow into this thing. And Someone again asked me the question, how long does it take for a person to receive black belt? That's another question. How long does it take someone to become a black belt? It varies from school to school. It varies from teacher to teacher. And again, it requires some years. There's no instant grits. You don't just poof overnight, I'm a black belt, or in just 6 months I'm a black belt, or a year I'm a black belt. You have to put some time in it. Even in today's society, and with MMA going on and all of these other entertainment types of events as it relates to sport fighting and so forth, never promote anyone to black belt before their time, because you're doing a disservice not only to your art and you as an instructor, you're doing a very big disservice to that individual, giving them a false sense of security and entitlement. Because to be a black belt is a very difficult phase in training, from beginner or white belt to novice to intermediate, advanced, and so forth, up into black belt. It's a very hard task to achieve black belt. Black belt should never be easy. Not Shodan, first degree black belt, of course. It should never be easy for anyone to obtain that. And that difficulty comes through rigorous, relentless, and well-disciplined training for the individual. Regardless of whatever the system and style is, you have to put the time in. If it's jiu-jitsu, groundwork, joint locks, throws, and ukemi and so forth, you put that time in. Karate, hard stance, horse stance, front stance, back stance, katas or hung, reverse punches, conditioning exercises, and stamina, cardiovascular exercise, through aerobic type of exercises and so forth. You got to go through this. Even when you go into the military, it's not about those drill instructors or teachers, or drill sergeants we call them. It's not about them trying to beat up on you. It's not about them trying to demean you or degrade you. It's about them trying to find out what it is that you're made of, so that they know what it is that they need to do for you as an individual to make you as tough as you possibly can be, and to pull that passivity out of you on some level, if you will. Because when I was in the military, there were guys that just did not meet the grade during boot camp. And I went to infantry school. I'm combat trained. So there were people who failed. And they didn't fail because they didn't physically have the ability and or potential to achieve a certain level of expertise and or excellence. It just wasn't in them. It's the same way in martial arts. To achieve black belt in any martial arts system should be the same. It should be difficult. Anything in life that is easy, it's not worth it. You've got to put the time in it, brothers and sisters. You've got to put the blood, the sweat, and the tears in. And if you haven't done that, you cannot truly appreciate it. It's that simple. So a child has to go through the same mental stress as well. I'm not saying, be overbearing as an instructor, but I'm saying on the level of that child. But we should know, as good or great instructors, what each student that walks in front of us needs as an individual. We should know what each person needs who walks in front of us and steps on that training floor. We should know what they need. That's our job. That's our responsibility, to know the students. And so everyone is not exactly the same and never will be. You have to use little kid gloves with some, and you just have to let down the hammer with others. You just really have to do that. So to achieve a black belt, to answer the question, is, I would say, depending on the system, 4 to 7 years. 4 to 7 years on average. There are exceptions again, but 4 to 7 years, and that's based on a lot of variables. It depends on the individual all the time, their mental state when they walk in your door. It depends on their physicality. It depends on their ability, their innate ability, what they were born with, if they're gifted or not gifted to do certain things. If they're flexible or stiff, or if they have pre-existing conditions medically and so forth. All of that factors in and how long it takes. Okay? Well, I hope that this was beneficial to you. Again, you heard my answer about should a child be promoted to black belt or not? Not unless they're prepared. We'll just leave it at that. And when do you promote a person to black belt? When are they eligible to be promoted to black belt? Depending on the system again, you know. But on average, 4 to 7 years. It shouldn't take you 20 years to become a black belt. That's certain. Okay. I'm done with that. But let me know what your experience is, if you have studied or trained in martial arts, or you're currently in the martial arts, and I'll try to respond back to you expeditiously. Until then, enjoy your day.